We're back here with Paula Pivoranis, and we are talking about human design. And so today we're going to be going through more of the specifics, right? The types of profiles that someone might have, that there are in the human design system, and then some of the specifics about those types. So Paula, why don't you kind of kick us off with what we're going to talk about today, and then we can get started from the top.
Perfect. So I think it would be really helpful if everyone paused really quickly and just brought their own chart up. And that way you can refer to it and see if there's things um, that'll help you. So there's that.
If they don't know where to go to pull up their chart, where should they go?
So I think you can just Google human design and you're going to get so many different types of free charts. You can type human or free human design in. That's just an easy place to start. There's so many different places. Some of the information that's more detailed might be restricted, but for today, we're focusing on your strategy and your authority. So any free chart is going to give you that information.
I did notice in your Instagram profile, you have a link to Jovian Archives, Get Your Chart. So that's another way people might just go and find it through your link in bio on Divine Design Paula.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Love that.
Okay, cool. So types, strategies, and authorities.
Yes. So we'll start with types because that's kind of like the overarching broader spectrum. And so we have manifestors, we have generators, we have projectors and reflectors. And then in the generator category, we do have a subtype manifesting generator. For the most part, some of the broader things are kind of in touch with the generator information,
Okay.
if
So
that makes sense.
yeah, a manifesting generator is primarily a generator.
Yes. Yeah. So what makes that is the sacral center. If you have your sacral center defined, you're either a generator or a manifesting generator, and that sacral kind of unites the two. So we'll start with manifestors because they were the leaders for a while until, did we say 1781?
Yeah, I think so.
1781, yeah. So for manifestors, they have a closed and repelling aura. So they kind of push people away, which is, probably something that they enjoy, I would say.
And we wouldn't know because we're not manifestors.
Right? We have a different aura that affects other people. So this one, yeah, definitely just kind of closed, repelling to themselves, kind of like I can handle it. I'm good. Their not self theme is anger. And so when they're not living in alignment, following their strategy and authority, they're going to feel anger. Their strategy is to inform. So a lot of times manifestors, they're like, go, 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 like do, do, do. They get the idea, they do it, they execute it, they're moving forward. So instead of just doing, it's best to inform. And on a smaller scale thing, if you are in relationship with a manifestor, you might notice that they just walk out the door. They didn't let you know what they were going to do. They just know that they wanted to go to the store, and so they're going. They're not telling you. So ideally, what tends to happen is when they do that, they go and they don't inform, then the other person's like, "Hey, I'm here. What are you doing? Where are you going? What's going on?" And so that brings them anger because then they have to explain themselves and they feel like they're explaining themselves. So instead of just doing, it's best if they inform others around them. They don't have to ask for permission. And I think that's a really big thing, especially if you have a manifestor child. It's human design was kind of created to help parents. So if you have a manifestor child, it's probably a good idea to get them in the habit of not feeling guilty for doing, but informing instead. When they're living in alignment and they're doing their informing, they're going to be at peace. So they will no longer have that anger. They will be in peace. And that's what we want for them, those manifestors. Moving on, we're going to go to the generator. So, like we said before, the generator and the manifesting generator both sacral energy. They're both going to have the same not self theme, strategy, and authority. So for the generator, their aura is open and enveloping. So they are opposite of the manifester. They're going to like bring you in, they're going to draw you into them. It's warm and welcoming. Their not self theme is frustration, and their strategy is to respond. So that frustration comes from not following that strategy of responding. For example, and now we'll get more into like the authority types, because with generators and manifesting generators, they can have other authorities. But for the most part, that responding is coming from that sacral. It can come from other motor centers, depending. A lot of them have their solar plexus, and so it's either responding from that solar plexus or responding from that sacral gut feeling. When they follow that strategy and authority, they're going to feel satisfaction. And that's what we want for them. Next, we have the projector. So the projector has a focused and penetrating aura. And so
We're the best.
we love being projectors. It's wonderful. Some people don't love when we give them that attention because it feels very invasive, you know?
That's the word that came to my mind. I know we don't intend for it to be, and we can talk more about it that later on, but yeah, it's focused and what's the word you used? Focused and penetrative?
Penetrating. Yeah. We see into the G center of others. That's our, I guess it's our goal. It's the way that we operate. We just see straight into the identity center of others. When we are not following our strategy and authority, we're going to feel bitterness. And our strategy is to wait for the invitation. So I know we talked a little bit about this in the first episode, but waiting for the invitation is also in part getting that recognition. So making sure that you have the recognition for the things that you have come here to master, get that invitation, and then see if that aligns with you. And when we do that, we're going to feel success. So, yes. And then the last one's the reflector. Reflectors have a sampling aura. When I think of a reflector, I think of that like movie scene where there's someone standing in the center and you can see them and there's like people whooshing around them. They are like just sampling, absorbing, viewing, watching. They're a fly on the wall. And so it's a very interesting, very small percentage of reflectors. We were just talking about charts before we got on, and I don't have a reflector in my chart basis diagram. No.
Like library?
Library, thank you. Their not self theme is disappointment. Their strategy is waiting a lunar cycle, and then their signature is surprise. So, with reflectors and them not having a single defined center, they do have channels that have definition. And with that, as the moon cycles through, because the moon is the fastest moving planet we have in our charts. So as that cycles through, it then activates these different gates and channels, and they need to feel through that entire 20, I think it's like a 28-day cycle to make decisions.
So you had mentioned manifestors have a closed and repelling aura. Generators have an open and enveloping aura. Projectors have a focused and penetrating aura. What did you say about reflectors?
Their sampling aura. Yeah. They're at a wine tasting every day.
So, and then when they're living their strategy and trusting that, how you said something about surprise? It shows up as
Yeah. It shows up as surprise. Yeah. They're very unique. Um, in my studies of human design, I haven't spent as much time on them or learning about them because there's very few of them. I want to say that there's only like, yeah, 1% of the population. So if you look up your chart and you're a reflector, let us know. We'd
Absolutely.
love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so just before we move on to anything else in terms of these types and strategies and even the authority that we'll get to in just a moment. Strategy in and of itself in human design, when it says, okay, this is the projector's strategy, the generator's strategy, etc. Until you were just explaining it just now, I didn't realize that it was a strategy to live out yourself. I
Yeah.
kind of thought I almost, like, interpreted it as just, like, these are instructions, this is, like, what, you're supposed to do, but in the grand scheme of things, I feel like most people today, at least probably people who are listening to this, have come to terms with, like, the fact that there is not necessarily a supposed to do anything. It's we've been taught certain things that worked, and then we've been taught certain things that don't work. And so this strategy, it seems like, is an invitation for each of the types to live more true to themselves. I'm curious, like going back to the manifester example you gave of someone who I'm going to the store, I'm just going to the store, I walk out the door and go. I don't tell, whoever else I'm in the house with where I'm going because why should they care? You know? What is that strategy really doing? I understand it might be creating more peace because you're saying, like, that's the self theme. Like, when you're living out your strategy as a manifester, you will feel more at peace. Whereas when you're not living out your strategy, you'll feel more anger in your life. Why is the strategy so important in your perspective?
So to start with the manifester, and I think your first question was, why is it important that they inform? It's important for them to inform because they're not an energy type. They don't have sacral energy. So ideally, when they have these ideas or feelings or thoughts, depending on how their chart is lit up with their centers, them informing is then getting the ball rolling for the generators and the manifesting generators to take it from there. And so, like, that was like our overarching lifestyle for the longest time. So that's what brings them peace about it. Like, and like I said, on the small scale, it's like you're in relationship with the other, whether it whatever type of relationship that is, when you're informing that other, then they feel included, understanding, that sort of thing, and that creates that peace. But when it comes to like bigger things, if you decide something and you just so like job wise, if a manifestor is like, I don't want to work here anymore, I'm going to work somewhere else. Then I wonder if how their 2-week notice goes.
Yes. Or I just
I'm
be like, "Alright,
gone.
today's my last day. See ya."
Yeah, or maybe even the idea of like not having conversation, like, I'm looking for something else. This isn't giving me what I need or something like that. They're just like, I'm just gonna change it. I'm just gonna make it happen.
Yeah, I love this concept. So, moving on to, like, generators with their strategy, it is to respond. So, that helps them instead of living in frustration that they're maybe constantly taking action on things that aren't being, like well, I don't know. I mean, instead of experiencing frustration in some ways throughout life, they get to experience satisfaction because they're responding. I'm just a little not confused, but I'm like, I wanna dig deeper into that word respond, you know?
Yeah. So their strategy is not to like start anything, but to be asked. And typically with generators and manifesting generators, you want to give them a yes, no. So if they're leading by their sacral, they need a yes, no. They can't have like a multiple choice question. It's not ideal for them. They need to see how their gut responds in a yes, no manner or a one or the other manner. Um, Now, 51% of the population is ruled by the solar plexus. And so that would bring in a different kind of response. Um, that's going to be a wading through that emotional cycle, that wave. So the response is what brings that satisfaction because they're not the one do. When they just do things, it can bring that frustration rather than having that interaction. Because most of these are based off of the other. Like a lot of human design is based off the other. Projectors were completely about the other. Manifestors are the only ones who kind of like live in their own world. And they still need other, but they need to remember to inform. With the generator and manifesting generator, that response is where their strategy is. So it's like waiting for it. And the nice thing about that though is that's a pretty quick thing that you can implement into your life as a generator or a manifesting generator to your strategy and authority. Like if you are asked something, to listen to which center you're supposed to listen to for that response, you can start to hear it. And the more you listen, the more responding you're doing, the stronger that's going to grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you're saying as far as where to listen to, let's just stick with generators for a moment because there are so many generators in the world. They're listening to their sacral or their solar plex
They're listening to the same
the sacral, period.
is that period. I want to say yes.
Or does this come into the authority type where they really need to, like, pay attention to what their authority is?
It's 100% authority type. Um, But I want to say generators only they don't have the solar plexus, but I could be wrong on that. So if you're a generator manifesting generator, typically it's either going to be solar plexus or sacral. And sacral is gut. When you are a sacral generator, manifesting generator, you are not saying yes or no. You're saying uh-huh or uh-uh typically because it's coming from that guttural response. And if you ever listen, Ra does so many like lectures where he talks about this, where he's like talking about how he'll be speaking to someone with that sacral response and the whole time they're like uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-uh, uh-huh. And you're like, yes, 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 sacral.
Yeah, yeah, totally, because that's where that's coming from. Yeah,
Mhm. Yep. That is that gut. The sacral is the gut. The sacral is like not necessarily verbal. And so again, touching back to like kids, because this whole system was to help parenting. If you have a child who is a sacral child, I think sometimes as parents, they want to give me a yes or a no rather than listening to that gut. Like be open to the idea that maybe they need that mhm, mm-mm situation. It's not them being nonverbal, it's them listening to that inner authority.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Because you said it's when you go in to check on that, it's not just yes or no, it's also, like, one or the other, right? So, which one am I which one is my gut pulling me toward or telling me is the right decision for me?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty good about what you covered in terms of the strategy for projectors waiting for the invitation. There's also a lot of like conversation around that I think for projectors, I don't know about for you, but it seems like a lot of the people I talk to about human design or a lot of what I listen to about human design is on the projector side. I think it's because I'm a projector and that's just kind of what I'm getting attention around. But I also know that projectors are designed to kind of study this system and see ways we can implement it into our society and into our families and into our relationships and communities and things like that. So, this waiting for the invitation, I guess just the one comment I have on it is yeah, I saw a video the other day of, what some people think waiting for the invitation means and what waiting for the invitation really is. And like what some people think it is literally just sitting around twiddling your thumbs, scrolling, 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 scrolling until someone calls you or asks you for help or, something. But what it really is, and what I've always felt is once I really got into relationship with this, is taking care of myself, it's studying what I wanna study, it's finding enjoyment in being me outside of helping others constantly, and that, enjoying those one-on-one focused penetrating conversations where people are asking questions or, being receptive or, like, they ask me for the coffee date or, mention even like, "Hey, it would be great to, like, get together here or there," you know? So instead of just, like, waiting around, it's more like preparing ourselves and, like, being okay with ourselves all the time, and then if an invitation comes, then we get to feel out for sure whether or not that's an invitation we wanna respond to. Is that kinda how you understand it too?
Yes, it's very active and not necessarily in like a doing. Oh, that's a weird way to say that. No, it's active in the sense of you're here as a projector to master things, master systems specifically, because projectors are here to like make those systems better and see those systems in different ways that other types cannot see. So, in order to master things, I know that there's like people who talk about this and how many hours it takes to master something. Do you know off the top of your head?
I wanna say it's like 21,000, but I actually think it's like 10,000. I think it's like 10,000 hours of, like, violin practice or, 10,000 hours towards something makes you one of the elites in that particular topic or category.
Yes. Yeah, so that takes time. And so during those quiet times, it's just a matter of like what excites you, what motivates you, what are you interested in, what can you easily talk about, what can you easily see? Like I think of it like systems like puzzles, like, oh, I can see those pieces going together. So mastering that and not necessarily you don't have to be like quietly at home all the time. Putting yourself out there in what way aligns with you so that people can see, oh, they have this knowledge, this information. I recognize that. I see that. And I'm going to invite that to me. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's right, for sure. Waiting doesn't mean not putting your creations out into the world. It just means in relationship to others, don't infringe upon their autonomy and free will and sovereignty to do what they wanna do. When they're ready, they will come ask us.
Which is, like, so hard for the projector because we, like, naturally have, like, a little bit of wisdom, we observe a lot, we can see a lot, and so when people are going through things and they come and talk to us, you really have to discern because you might not be, like, necessarily invited to the conversation, but you have, like, that invitation there, and then there's some people who come and talk to us who don't want you to say anything. They might say, "Hey, I want you to tell me, like, what you see in this scenario." They don't mean it. They don't know that they don't want to hear it. So, there is discerning in those invitations, but when you have someone coming to you to, like, vent or whatnot, and you start to give advice, it feels so bad. It feels so icky, like, I give myself the ick whenever I start to do that, and I'm like, should've been quiet, should've just waited to see if they wanted to know any of that." And then it's just kind of like one of those things I don't know if you've felt that before where you're just like, "Ugh, okay."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think some of that is the self-projected part of me or us because this is just my opinion on it, but it feels like when someone's talking to me and I start to respond to them in any way, this is like the most like basic kind of thing, but like I start to respond to them, I'm going through my own process of like what I am trying to say. And so I use my words to do that. And I think sometimes it might come across as I call it like preachy potentially. Like it's like I'm talking until I hit on a point where I'm like, oh, that's what I finally was trying to get to. But they never even asked for any of this, you know? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I know what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a great feeling. Yeah.
So one of the keys that I have in my chart, which gene keys use the same gates, well, 11 gates from our human design chart show up in our gene keys. And I don't remember which number it is off the top of my head, but it's basically like silence is one of the things that I should be aiming toward. That, I can be valuable and I am valuable with just my presence. And so that's something that's been very real in terms of my practice with waiting for the invitation, really aiming to remain quiet and know that that's enough until that invitation comes through. Not easy, but just something I'm practicing for sure.
Yeah, that came to me over the weekend. I just like had this feeling that I need to start being a little bit more quiet.
Yeah. Well, I love that we're on this podcast and we get to talk so that we can't be quiet all the other times of the day.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so is it a good time to talk about authorities? Like, should we dive into that or anything else we talk
Yeah.
about on types?
No, I think that would be good. I was hoping that I would have my notes in like a more I might be flipping a little bit because I want to start with the most likely type down to like the smaller percentage of people types. It's like a weird way to say that, but that's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm going to start with the solar plexus. So 51% of the population has their solar plexus defined. And if you're looking at a chart, I'm going to slide this a bit just so I can see the chart. If you're looking at the chart, if you look, you'll find the head first, the root straight down below it, and then to the right of that chart is that solar plexus. So if you have that defined, then your authority is naturally going to be a solar plexus authority. It's an emotional authority. So with that solar plexus, it's a wave motor function. It rises and it falls. You can't live in the now with that. It's not something that you can be asked a question and in that moment respond. So it kind of switches up for the generator, manifesting generator. You are to respond, but for you, you need that emotional wave to go through its highs and lows before you do that response. And I wish, like, I know that I can experience it being around someone with their solar plexus, but I feel like you would almost have to experience that person one on one, day in and day out for a couple of days to really get what that experience would be like, because that's unique and that's interesting to me because it's not something that I can personally feel or begin to like understand other than like a educational level. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. So, someone close to me, I know has their solar plexus defined, and I hadn't really thought about them using this as their authority type or needing to use this, being encouraged to use this as their inner authority type until you just said that and I pulled up their chart just to confirm. But I know that I can see that. I can see how it plays out for them, that when they do wait to feel all of the things there are to feel, there's so much more clarity on the other side. There's so much more of a confident response versus feeling like they have to respond in the moment because in the moment there's just so much pressure. It feels like a little chaotic. At least this is what I'm observing and kind of hearing from them, as far as like in the moment decisions. So that's really good to know because like I just want to encourage everyone who has their solar plexus defined and has this emotional authority that like it's totally fine to like feel all the feelings, highs, lows, in betweens, and let yourself get through all of that, whether it takes an hour, a day, a week. I mean, in practicality, I don't think it would take longer than a week if you're really allowing yourself to feel everything. The reason people don't, and this is me just kind of riffing here, but like I think one of the reasons people don't process through the entire wave of emotions, like you mentioned, that do have their solar plexus defined, is because of fear. And because they're afraid that they either need to make a decision faster or that their emotions are gonna lead them astray or something, and it's like, no, like, your emotions are not tangible things. They are things you are experiencing, but they will 1000% come to an end. You know, I've always heard emotion as like energy in motion. It's just movement, you know, and like letting it move is the most important thing because if you keep it stuck, then one, you can cause all kinds of health issues. And two, you'll never get that clarity that you really deserve because you didn't let yourself feel everything there was to feel.
Yes, 100%. A lot of times people will say and this is 51% of the population. So the fact that we put all this weight on responding instantly or knowing exactly how you feel in that moment is unfair because a lot of the population needs that time. They need to feel through that. And this is an area that with a solar plexus, you can be a projector and have that emotional authority. You can be a manifesting generator. You can be a generator
Mhm.
other than reflector can have the option of the emotional center being defined, the solar plexus being that authoritative figure. So so yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it's huge. In fact, the first time someone even talked to me live in person about human design, they were like, "Well, what kind of authority type are you? Emotional?" Like they just like assumed, you know? And I was like, "No, actually I'm not." But, you know, it is so popular amongst so many people. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I think as, if you look up your chart and you know what you are and you need that time, no matter which authority it is, just know that you need that time. And when someone asks you something, just tell them you need however much time you start to figure out for yourself. But because most of them do need time, I think the generator is really the only one the generator with just a sacral being with no others, no solar plexus, they can respond in the moment. So, yeah,
so then that might lead it to the next authority type, right? Because is the next authority type you were gonna cover sacral authority?
it sure is, Megan.
Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, sacral authority. And I bounced around in my note taking. I wrote a lot, I think, about this. Yeah, I wrote a lot about this. Generators make up two-thirds of humanity. 51% of the population is emotional. We talked about that. So a third or 32% are generators who are emotional, and half, my notes don't make sense here. Less than half of the generators are sacral. Um, they are here to be existential. They're here to respond in the moment to life. What you want to be wary of, because like it sounds like this is so easy. This is like the easiest one to immediately experiment with and try and see how that feels. But you have to be very careful that you're listening to your sacral and not letting your mind wrap up in this. So like fears can get in the way, mental concerns can get in the way. Ross says they're the select ones, chosen, responsible. I wrote select ones, chosen, responsible. They're supposed to be just like in the moment people. They bind us together as a species, but he even talks about how he thought whenever he started teaching human design, how it's going to be so easy to get these generators and manifesting generators with sacral authority on board. And it's actually, they're one of the hardest. They're deeply not self. They're constantly trying to be manifestors. They are the source of frustration in the population. So they're greatly disrupted from the emotional wave. They truly need to know themselves and understand the nature of their being. They need to respond, and you don't seek that response. You let it find you. They have spontaneity and self-knowledge. So it's super, super important that these beings know that their sacral responds and give that quick, immediate feeling. I think a lot of times with these authorities, it's not something that's just going to hang out and live there. Like once you feel it, you need to know that you felt it and use that response. But yeah, they're super important and they're super conditioned. So if you are a sacral being, also look at what areas in your chart are you open. Those are going to be areas that you are going to be potentially affected by that not self feeling. And we can go through the not self at some point too.
Is that the same not self as the profile type of frustration?
No,
Okay,
it's another. So, like centers, each center has their own not self
I got you.
feeling.
So when
Yes.
someone is not operating in their sacral authority, there's an experience that they have that is described in the human design system.
Yes. For example, with the charts that we have up, there is a generator. No, I want like a full generator. Let me see. Okay, a generator up. And when I'm looking at their chart, they have 5 open centers. And so what I tend to look for in those open centers is how many activations or channels that are defined coming off of those open centers. And then that's like areas that you can have more conditioning in. For this particular person, they have like 2 on 4 out of those 5 and then 1 on the 5th one. So there's a lot of different space area places of potential not self. And those themes are things that you should look at as well. And we can get to after authority.
And for my own clarification, those open gates inside of the undefined centers are what you're referring to. So, like, in an undefined center, if there's, like, let's just say 5 out of 7 centers that are not defined in that, or sorry, 7 out of the 9 gates that are not defined in that undefined center, but those are the areas to pay attention to?
No. So I'm looking for the reverse. Yeah. So if you have like any gates that are defined, those are the areas because you have like that slight energy in those gates that can then pull and it's like for example, for myself, I'm a projector who has an open root center with like a numerous amount of defined gates on the root. So my not self theme is always in a hurry to be free of the pressure because it's one of the 2 pressure
I see.
centers. Um, and so slowing down and not feeling like I need to like get to the next thing is an important thing for me to focus on and be aware of.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Cool. Cool. So, sacral authority, is that what you were referring to as the and or uh-huh and earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
That guttural response. Yes.
So, there's a few things that come to mind with that. One is, like, as far as practicing that guttural response, if maybe you never have or you've always tended to create mental conversation or chatter about whether or not something is a good idea for you or not a good idea. I don't know if I have any like suggestions about it, but I do know that the awareness itself, like the conscious choice to practice something new goes a long way, that if you find yourself as someone with sacral authority and you're used to, I'm gonna call it mentalizing. I don't even think that's a word, but mentalizing everything that comes your way as far as how you make the decision. Um, Maybe you just practice setting that aside. You always can come back to it if you need to, but like checking in with that with your it's almost like with your body. I, and I think it's important because we talk about like nervous system work a lot. At least I kind of run in different networks and circles that talks a lot about your nervous system and like having a calm nervous system and all of this stuff, it's like there are some steps to take to be able to trust yourself, you know? But that guttural response and having not having sacral authority, I don't know for sure. We would, I'd have to ask someone who practices this inner authority on the regular. It's almost like a pendulum, like back or forth, like forward or backward almost,
Mm,
like, uh-huh, like leaning in or an like I'm leaning out. Like that's kind of what I almost like am comparing it to, you know? So, I don't know, maybe someone can just, like, leave a comment and how they practice it, you know? But, like, I would be curious because it feels like it is a this or that, like, that is what it is. Which one are you swaying toward, you know? Which one are you leaning into?
yeah. Yeah, or is it a yes for you or no?
Mhm.
Is it something that you want to invite into your life or not? But yeah, but it also circles back to like that immediate response. And so you can start with smaller things in your life with someone that you trust, you know. I think that that's a healthy thing. So have them ask you questions. Like if you're trying to decide a really big, important thing in your life, if you have someone that you can talk to and let them know, like, I'm coming from this sacral response because I think that's like just a side note here. A lot of times when you start to do this experiment or like look into astrology or things, like you have to find it almost a safe space with someone who's not going to like judge or uh, disagree, or just like leaves that open-ended space for you to experiment so that you feel like I can do this without it being like a big deal. So if you have someone that you can say, "Hey, I want to do this experiment. Will you ask me yes, no questions about this? These are the kind of things that I'm looking for. This is what's happening. This is where I'm trying to get to, but if you can just ask me some questions so I can feel how it feels in my body, how it feels in my sacral, that would be really helpful for me. And just start to listen to it. If you have time before making like any of these big decisions, just have someone ask you, "Do you want this for dinner?" Like, I think it's so neat that that sacral authority exists because it's like instantaneous and it's for everything. And I mean, that's the case for every authority, but like you get to experience that in real time.
I don't think Ra was saying that this is someone's inner authority because it comes naturally to them. I think he's saying that this is how you were designed, and when you choose to practice this inner authority style, you will have better outcomes and enjoy your life more, and you'll feel more like yourself because things will flow, energy will flow. Like, you won't be fighting, what is.
Yes, yes. I'm 100% with that. Yeah, it's a listening too. Yeah. But yeah, 100% it's not like this is an easy natural thing. There's so much conditioning in everyday life from the get. So we tend to lose that. And maybe we'll see like little glimpses of it here and there, but when we start to focus and we really know and we can pay attention to that then and practice with that and experiment with it, then it just becomes stronger. Then we can be more secure in that.
I love that. Anything else you wanna share about the sacral authority in particular?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay. What's the next type of authority?
We're going to move on to splenic authority.
Cool.
A lot of times with the splenic authority, so what we're looking at in the chart is if the spleen is lit up and it tells you that your authority is splenic, then this is what you're looking for. And a lot of times, splenic authority, when they don't know that that's their authority, they'll know after the fact. They'll just be like, I just knew it. I knew that was going to happen. No matter what the case may be that they knew, they probably knew. It is also something that lights up in the body in that splenic area. It's just one of those just like knowing things. They have to trust it. It's a survival authority. So the spleen is like a health organ. It filters things out. And so this authority is like the filter for them. It analyzes things on so many different levels. Um, the thing with the splenic is it's not just because it's a yes or a no in this moment, that can change 10, 15, 20 minutes, 3 days, 4 years. That can change. It's a case by case basis. So for Raw uses an example of like if you go to the movies and you get this feeling like I should not go in, don't go in. But maybe go later, go to the next showing, and see how that feels for you. And when I think of splenic authority, I think of, again, society doesn't really have the opening or the understanding or we've been conditioned to like be like, well, I'm on this time frame. Like you're here with us. Like, can you just do it anyway? So I think that it's really important that we like start to allow space for people who maybe they don't know that that's their authority, but they get the feeling, just giving them the space to, okay, we'll just check back another time. And it's not always possible, but I mean, you can always reschedule for another day too. But all of their decisions are based on health. It's all health related. They're the most vulnerable to become ill because they're making a decision not in alignment with the spleen.
I see.
So it's very important that they listen to that. Ra is a manifestor that has splenic authority. And so he made the comment like, I live on back roads and I usually don't buckle my seatbelt till I get to like the highway. And one day I was driving down the road and I started buckling my seatbelt and he's like, I just let it go. And then he was rear ended. So it's like that natural survival instinct. It's not a motor. So as soon as you start to analyze that, it can go away. So it's just one of those things that's also a practice. Like these are all practices, but practice with how it feels. Realize that you're just going to be way better off listening to that than not.
So spleen equals intuition in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, there's so much like there are so many generalizations out in the world, right? I think even like, for example, a generalization could be like, well, when you're embodying like your feminine qualities more, you're going to rely more on your intuition. Whereas if you're like relying on your masculine qualities, you might rely more on your like analyzing and things like that. That's just something I've heard, right, over the years. Kind of like right brain, left brain kind of thing. But like what I love about human design is it kind of takes the masculine, feminine out of it, and it's just like, this is just, like, how your mechanics are. These are just, like, how energy is flowing in your body. This is your unique imprint, male, female, androgynous, it doesn't matter, like, you are someone who has, like, a unique way of moving about the world, and it's almost like the pursuit of our highest self or our best self is about learning who we are and about being able to trust who we are and about being able to be confident in who we are. It's not to say that if you don't have the splenic authority, you don't have any quote unquote intuition. It might just actually be showing up as something else, right? Like it might be showing up as sacral authority. It might be showing up as emotional authority. Whereas splenic authority is that more like acute signal. Like you said, it almost like lights up that particular region of the body even. Like I'm just like doing it. So if that's the case, then do you have any suggestions on how someone might practice that if they have splenic authority?
I feel as though it's important for everyone to meditate, but I think that maybe just having a daily meditation and checking in with the body would be a healthy way to do it. Also, remembering to not doubt yourself. Like, if you feel something so clearly, it's better to listen than to doubt. But it is one of those nuanced things that you and I cannot understand from like a feeling it situation. So it's hard to say exactly what that feels like. I have talked to splenic people and asked them how that feels. I think my sister is splenic. No, she's solar plexus. So many solar plexus people. Um, but it is, yeah, it's just, it's one of those things that it sounds like when you are bringing awareness to moment by moment, it'll be easier to hear. Like with Ross saying, like, he just started putting his seatbelt on. So just allowing space for yourself to have that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go chat with one person that I have in our library about splenic authority and just see like, yeah, how it shows up. And I guess part of it is like someone might not even know that that's what that is, you know?
Yeah.
They may have just always like lived their life a certain like lived their life a certain way, made decisions a certain way, and then once they've because I think that's an important part of anyone who's listening to this that's not familiar, very familiar with human design is these things can be true without you putting a label on them, right? Like you can be
Mhm.
using your splenic authority without you saying this is my splenic authority, right? We're having a conversation about putting labels on certain types of authorities, certain types of profiles, certain types of strategies, because then it allows us to have a discourse or a discussion about how that shows up for people and is that bettering them? And by bettering them, I don't mean making them a better person, having a better experience of life.
Right.
You said earlier, like what we want for a manifester is for them to feel peace. What we want for generators is for them to feel satisfaction. What we want for projectors is for them to feel success. What we want for reflectors is for them to feel surprise. Like that probably would like really like light them up, right? So these are all things that are here as like insights and options to practice and experiment with. But yeah, I love this conversation about the splenic one because it's one that I'm not as familiar with for sure. But now I want to go chat with this person and be like, okay, so tell me all you know.
Have you ever felt like after the fact you knew something was gonna happen and you wish you listened to that knowledge?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that's the question for sure. How
I'm
many
gonna
how many other types are there?
s
Or inter not
we have
authorities?
so we have reflectors, and then we have some of the more specific projector authorities.
The reflectors have their own authority?
They do. They
Cute.
do, or lack thereof.
Okay.
Reflectors are super neat, and I would really, really like to spend time talking to one. They have no inner authority. They have no definition, as we know. So, but what they do have are those gates. So you'll see like no definition in the centers, but they have definition in certain gates. So with that, they are on a lunar phase. They have to follow time. They have to follow the movement of the moon because the moon is the fastest orbiting planet to us. And so it activates different channels as it moves. And as it's activating those channels, it's activating that in the reflector. So they're going through like a sequence of definitions. So that's why they have to wait for that whole lunar cycle. And then they can make that decision. But the moon is the agent of authority for the reflectors. So I think maybe like if you are a reflector, journaling might be helpful to you. And like seeing, like just being aware of like what's activated each day might be somewhat helpful. That might be a little bit deeper. Journaling definitely is going to help. Um, but yeah, they're completely moon driven, which I love. I love that
That's
so
cool.
much.
Yeah, no, that is neat.
It's so neat. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, other than just to say, like, I wish we could all in, like, some weird way, I wish we could all just say, like, "The moon and I are gonna commune," and then I'll let it come back to you and let you know.
I love that. I love that.
So then are you indicating that the other authority types are directly related to projectors only?
I think we have a couple. We have mental projector. We have ego manifested authority, which is manifester. And then we have ego projected, which is projector. I'm trying to think if I have any. We did splenic. I bounced around a bit. And we have self projected, of course.
So we have to
Yes.
Okay, well, let's kind of like hit on the highlights because these are actually ones I'm still not super familiar with either. Definitely heard a little bit about the mental projector, have not heard much about the ego manifested authority or the ego projected. So, cliff notes or whatever you want to share, like what is the mental projector authority?
So mental, let's flip back to where I was. Mental projectors have no inner authority. They're heavily influenced. They need to be one on one. They're not to answer in the moment. They need a sounding board.
Okay,
And then, yeah, just mostly they need that sounding board. They need to discuss it with they're not seeking advice. They need people in their lives that they can be like, hey, I don't want you to tell me, answer me, whatever. I just need to talk about this and see. And they need to do that with not just like one person. They need to do it with multiple people.
I see.
And then just like hear yourself and how it's relative to the other. But yeah, it's very close to self-projected projector. We listen to our voice though. They're listening to how like things sound when they're saying it. Like not necessarily how they sound, but what they're saying.
I see. A
And that's
self-projected projector is listening to how we say it, and
yes.
the mental projector is listening to what they say.
Yes. Yeah. And what they say to multiple people. So they need a decent amount of people in their life that they can talk to and work through those things with.
Is that mental projector also I've seen the authority type described as sounding board, is that the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's getting that sounding board.
Okay. So, they don't have an inner authority. Do they need to give any credit to what other people have to say?
No.
Okay, they just talk. People can say what they say, but they need to talk to a lot of people, or at least more than 1 or 2, and then from there, they will know? Is that kinda what I'm hearing? They will just know, like, what the right decision is for them?
Yes. So they're talking to multiple people. They don't need them to talk back. They can have the other person ask them questions, give them prompts, but they're not looking for advice. They need to talk about their decision that they're trying to make, and ideally with different arc types.
I see.
So they need like a little bit of variety in their life. And a lot of times these people have already got that or have like a few close people that they talk to. At least I'm relating it sort of to the self projected because as a self projected person, I've always been a talker and that can relate to a lot of different things. But I think when you have that kind of authority, whether it be mental or self projected, you end up talking about it regardless. You may not then listen to what you say and follow it, but you end up being like more communicative about it. So, yeah, it's important for them to talk to different people, maybe be around different people, get some prompts in there from other people, but ultimately hear what they're saying over and over. And if that'll be how they kind of ring true for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything different about self-projected projectors? So, I think it's a good segue from, like, mental projectors who are using others as a sounding board to everything we were just talking about with self-projected projectors. So, you and I are both self-projected projectors. we're listening to how our voice sounds when we talk, more so than even what it is we are saying. And then
Yes.
what are we doing with that information? Like, what are we paying attention to when it comes to, like, how we talk?
Yes. So it's still one of those things that you don't, when you're asked something, how you sound instantly is what you're basing it off of. So it's like still that quick answer, like the spleen is quick, the sacral is quick. And the more you analyze it, the more you can get away from your true answer.
I see.
But yeah, it should be that quick. And then when you respond, like if you ask me a question, I say no, but I mean yes, like I that no didn't sound like a no, then that's where it's at. It's that almost immediate. As soon as you start talking, and you want to try and stay away from that mental process of going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't
You
analyze everything.
yeah, for sure. Do you have any as far as practicalities for both the well, we talked about the mental, for the self-projected, what's a practical step for them to take to practice inner authority if this is something new for them?
Having someone that they can talk to, usually it's some just like it doesn't have to be like a big group, just like a particular person that you trust and just listening to yourself. But you want someone that you know that you have the space to be truthful, because I think that no truth is no success for a self-projected projector. And sometimes just in life in general, the truth is not easy. So having someone that you can be vulnerable with, that you're talking to, and maybe someone who knows to listen to what you're saying rather than, or like to how you're saying it rather than what you're saying, um, that can be really helpful. And I know you and I have talked about like I especially have felt it where I say something and it is not at all what I say is not at all in alignment with what I hear in my voice. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about, you know, talking with the other person and saying educating them on self-projected authority and, asking them to just listen to how you're saying it. I think that there's a certain part of being self-projected that we know, but we've been kind of on this same topic throughout these inner authorities of but maybe until we know we don't know, So it's kind of like I hear myself talking if I'm used to constantly making decisions based on other things or other factors, then this would feel new. Like, it can even feel scary or like a little like anxiety ridden to make a decision, especially like really big decisions, right? Based on just how I sound, when I'm talking. But I think for me, I can even talk into a voice memo. I can I can write, even though writing doesn't have a verbal movement to it or like a verbal like the waves of sound with it. It's more of the confidence that I'm able to write with. If I can write something down and reading it out loud or even just like absorbing it, saying it in my head, like there's a certain confidence about it. I can trust that I'm on the right path. If I'm questioning myself or, kind of like not getting right to the point around a certain topic, then I know that I probably am not ready to make a decision or I'm not gonna make that decision, because I'm not confident yet around it. So for me, confidence seems to come up a lot with me exercising my self-projected authority. I'm just checking in on with myself about that and like, are there times that I could potentially quote unquote like lie to myself because I'm feeling confident about it. But you mentioned like, no truth is no success. And I have noticed that as a projector for sure. And so it's like, well, sure, one can lie to themselves, but also it won't work. Like, the lie will not end the way that you wanted to. So,
No.
so you may as well, like, embrace the truth.
Yeah, I feel like when you do lie, the universe has its way of just, like, pushing, like, putting pressure on it for
Absolutely.
self-project like, I'm relating that to self-projected projector
Yeah,
specifically.
specifically. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything well, should we move on to ego manifested and ego projected as we go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the ego projected authority. So, the ego center, or also known as the heart center, is a motor. It's more powerful than the G center, so it takes over, and that's how you get an ego projected authority. They're very rare. The only thing that they can truly trust is the invitation to initiate. So they're actually like they have like a bit of initiation in them, but just like any projector, you have to have that invitation. It just is a little bit more, hmm, how do I want to say that? They don't have a voice in and of itself without that recognition and that invitation.
I see.
They need that from the other.
It's almost as if their authority comes through the invitation itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I kind of feel like like they're saying, or like Ross saying. And he also noted that like projector leadership is all about guidance. So I think specifically for the ego projected authority, like it might feel easier for it to fall into like that manifestor groove of doing, but they do just have to wait, and they do have to get that recognition and then go from there. Get that invitation to initiate.
Yeah. It must be pretty rare because yeah, I don't have anyone who has that.
Yeah. I'm
So,
gonna say, I wish I had the information on like what percentage, but it's less percent than the self projected. I think it might be the smallest, other than reflector.
right, right.
Here's the ego manifested authority. So the ego manifested authority, they just need to pay attention. They're expressed through their throat. So it's a verbal expression, and you listen to your throat. So it's sometimes lumped in with the self projected, but like speak spontaneously. It's not about thinking. It's not a thinking game. It's nothing that you should like let it develop or wonder or sit in the mind. It is speak instantly, in what you say. And a lot of times, this particular authority is embarrassed of what they say. They're like, why did I say that? I don't know why I just said that. But that's the truth. That's their truth. And that's what they should be saying. It can't be mental, and you have to hear what you yourself are saying. So, very similar to the self projected.
Projected, but for manifestors specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And following that ego, it's like an ego throat connection.
Well, thank you for walking us through all of those because and I this was my request of like let's talk about the authorities because I do feel like in a world where we want, at least I'll speak for myself, like there have been times where I wanted to be able to say that I had to make a decision because of blank, right? Like that there was something outside of me that was like requiring I make a certain kind of decision. But freedom, which is very important to this whole conversation, like if we kind of pull ourselves up to like a bird's eye view of like, why are we talking about human design? Why are we talking about these authority types? It's because you deserve freedom. Like everyone deserves to be free, to live as themselves. And looking outside of ourselves for answers to what we should do or why we should do it or how we should do it will always leave us feeling a little empty, a little lackluster, a little not self because we were designed to create. decisions from within ourselves, at least from what I can tell, you know? And that when we do make decisions for ourselves, with ourselves, by trusting ourselves, life, we're able to move through life with a little bit more ease, a little bit more flow, a little bit more peace, a little bit more joy, all of the things that go with like, kind of a nice life that even when we have like really difficult things happen, we have cultivated this trust within ourselves to be able to navigate life and like the different changes that we need to make. I'm a big David Hawkins fan. Like I've read a lot of his books and one of the things that really stood out to me many years ago when I started reading his work was that all of life is just decisions. I mean, that's all it is. So, like, you decide how long to stay somewhere, you decide when to leave, you decide whether you stay at that job or quit, you decide what you're going to eat. Like, I know there are some very, very like outlying circumstances where maybe some things are truly forced upon someone, and that's not what I'm talking about here. But I am talking about even the decision about what to do next, right? If something is forced on you, like there's always these decisions we're making. So that's the reason I thought having this conversation about inner authority would be so helpful because if you're someone who is even if you're experienced with human design, I think all of us can do more intentional work or decision making process using our inner authority and seeing where it takes us and seeing how we feel about ourselves in the middle of that. So there's a lot to digest, but at the same time, there's not because you're each and every single person listening to this is just digesting their inner authority. Like you don't need to understand all of them to get started on this path or on this journey of making decisions based upon your unique blueprint. And as projectors and as this podcast projector designs, like we are going to continue having conversations about all of the types and what all of this kind of means on a more practical basis for people living their life. And I think what I want to share here toward the end is it is helpful to have someone else look at your chart and like actually kind of like just see what they see, ask a few questions, like get you kind of moving through your chart yourself, like letting them read it so that you can start kind of looking at it from a different perspective than maybe you've just been looking at it for yourself. And it sounds like, Paula, you're open to that. So if someone wanted to reach out to you and say, hey, like, I have my chart, can you read it? Like, and have a conversation about maybe what some of the things are that they see or that you see in there, that they could do that. They don't have to wait, until some perfect day to do it. They can just reach out to you like right away and see if you guys can schedule a time together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, any final thoughts? I know we've kind of like covered a lot today, but any final thoughts on types or authorities?
Yeah. I think that the thing about human design is when you start to practice with your strategy and authority, you're starting that deconditioning process because you're starting to listen to that authority. And that's like the first step. So if it's something that you want to try, then you definitely should. If it's something that you want to dabble with and put away, that's fine too. Everybody's life journey is different, but it is kind of like a way that if you feel like you are being drugged through life rather than experiencing it, it's a good way to kind of start to see what isn't aligning with you that's causing that feeling of like being pulled through rather than moving forward yourself. So,
Nice. I love that. It gives me like ideas on where we could take our next conversations. But yeah, I mean, I think it shows up differently like in work and then in relationships and, with money and all these different areas. So hopefully we can get to some of those specific topics down the line.
I agree.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much. And thank you, listener, for listening. Truly do reach out to us if you have any questions or leave comments like with your particular type and authority. We'd love to know, get to know you a little bit. But I look forward to hearing from you and we'll talk to you again soon.